over the Sultanate of Oman, bordered on one side by the United Arab Emirates and on the other by the Indian Ocean, the first thing you notice is the great richness of the landscape. On arrival, you notice the gentle pace of life here and the warm welcome of the Omani people. Welcome to this little-known corner of the Middle East, which from time immemorial has been called Arabia Felix, Happy Arabia. In the heart of the Hajar Mountains, the backbone of the country, nestle many villages like Bilad Sait. This timeless village is best explored on foot, at hiking pace. A gentle approach allows you to discreetly enter into the daily life of the secluded village.
We're coming up to the Majalist, the village community center. The local irrigation system on which the survival of these isolated villages depends is called the falaj. It was introduced by the Persians more than 4,000 years ago. There's a village council. The distribution of the water, for example, that we hear flowing just behind us, is all regulated by this village council.
Thousands of kilometers of small channels connected to underground mountain springs irrigate the terraced crops and palm groves. Dominating the village, the natural barrier formed by the eastern Hajar Mountains is topped at over 2,000 meters by the plateau of Burkat al-Sharaf. Above the hikers, a pair of Egyptian vultures execute a well-choreographed mating dance. These migratory birds are among the 465 species identified in Oman. In order to protect them, Sultan Qaboos bin Said, in power since 1969, has created several nature reserves, like the Daymaniat Islands off the coast of the capital, Muscat. The reserve is an archipelago of 9 islands stretching over 200 square kilometers. Robert Baldwin, an English marine biologist, knows every inch of these islands. For 15 years, he and his team of researchers have worked with the Environment Ministry to protect the different marine reserves in the country.
So what we do is each morning we walk each of these beaches looking for the sign of the turtles that may have nested the previous night. We'll just be scoring how many turtles have laid on each beach and then erasing the evidence of that so that the following morning we can't get confused and recount. Yes, possibly digging up her previous nest or having hatched. Normally when they hatch, the eggs are right at the bottom of the chamber and the hatchlings then sequentially work their way up, pushing sand. These are hawksbill turtles, so they are a critically endangered species, the sort of last category before extinction. So they're really on the brink of extinction. And on these islands here, the density at which they nest, even though there's relatively few turtles, possibly about 400 females, it doesn't sound very much, but that's actually an extremely high number to be nesting in such a small area, which obviously gives you a good chance to protect a relatively large number of turtles relatively easily.
Ras Al Had, a coastal nature reserve of over 120 square kilometers, is unique in the world. More than 40,000 green turtles come here every year to lay their eggs. In 2008, Ras Al Jins was created within the reserve as an education centre, a museum and a scientific observatory dedicated to the conservation of turtles. It's the only place where members of the public are allowed to observe egg laying in small groups, escorted by about 50 local guides who also patrol the area. In spite of the presence of the scientists and guides, predators pose a major threat to the turtles, whether they're foxes, seagulls, or even fishermen. Only 3 baby green turtles out of every 10,000 will reach adulthood. Robert and his team are pushing for a practical environmental policy in order to protect these exceptional sites.
In order to safeguard natural resources such as these, we need to give them some sort of value. We need to place an economic value on them rather than just setting them aside and hoping that people will accept that they cannot use them at all. We've learnt that that is not usually the case, and it's better to enable some form of use, non-extractive, sustainable use, and which allows people to, first of all, come to see a spectacular and very interesting environment, to appreciate that, to understand it, to start to realize the values of it, the integral values of it, rather than just the economic values of it. If we were just to set it aside, then perhaps that sort of level of understanding would not come about.
The turquoise blue waters fade away to reveal a strange mineral universe, the silica desert on the edge of the Wahiba sands. In the middle of this arid land of fire and stones, the group of hikers camp for the night. Their leader is Francois Pilon, a French mountain guide who specializes in responsible ecological hiking.
It's a whole mindset. We want to increase the chances of meeting people. And, for example, approaching somewhere on foot is the best way to meet people. The other day, for example, when we were walking from Arus, we saw people coming back up from the palm groves with their dried lemons, and it was great. You chat for 5 minutes, they show you their produce, it's brilliant. There's this famous notion of the capacity of an area. If there are 12 of you, you don't make much of an impact. If you put 5,000 people in the same area, that's very different. That's why we travel in small groups. You have more chance of meeting people. You don't make an impact, and you can employ more local people. Those things are important.
On va aller se baigner à Wadi Bani Khalid, puis revenir à Mine Tarib. Voilà, alors depuis la pointe, là où il y a le centre de tortue, on va ensuite repartir en direction de Sour.
Oman, even though the dromedary, the former ship of the desert, has long been replaced by the 4x4, it remains the pride of the Bedouins, who always keep a few. For the most part, they wander peacefully in semi-freedom in the Wahiba. This sea of sand in the heart of the country reminds us that 80% of the Sultanate is desert. In the desert, or as you come around a mountain, it's not unusual to come across a wadi, which means a dry riverbed. That's misleading, as the natural pools and waterfalls of Wadi Bani Khalid demonstrate.
It's lovely.
It's fantastic.
In the Jebel Akhdar, the Green Mountain, Ahmed has thought of an original way to share the customs of his village with the outside world. His village is called Misfat al-Abrien. For centuries, it was a crossroads where the merchants who zigzagged across the region with their loaded donkeys would meet before they crossed over the pass behind the village. These visits were greeted with shouts of joy from the children. And when the merchants arrived in the village square, the people pressed around them, asking for the latest news. The village has gradually lost the excitement, but Ahmed wants to bring it up to date with his tourist project.
Hello, how are you? Can you get the donkeys ready? We're going up into the mountains later. Okay?
بس تمام بس ما يهم شيء إن شاء الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا السلام عليكم.
Ahmed is showing us around his family house, which is over 200 years old. He has transformed it into a gîte.
As you know, the house has 3 rooms. This is the west room. The ceiling is as it was, with painted palm tree trunks, and the walls are covered in sarouj, plaster made with local red clay. I thought I would leave it as it was without changing the ceiling or walls or anything to keep it authentic. The project is important for this reason. The preservation of our old houses. These buildings are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and if we don't preserve them somehow, they will fall into ruin, and then it will be difficult to rebuild them. Among the services we can offer in our guest house project will be trips into the mountains with the donkeys, climbing, watering with the irrigation channels, the filage, and agriculture. That way, the tourist will be able to experience several aspects of Omani life.
They say that Oman has one foot in the past and one in the future. This duality is most visible when you walk around the capital, Muscat. With ancient dhows anchored in the bay and modern cars driving along the Corniche. In spite of spectacular modernization thanks to the manor of oil, the Sultanate of Oman, unlike other Gulf countries, has been able to preserve its soul and its traditions. Our journey ends here at the gates of Arabia, with the feeling of having encountered a country with many different faces that is welcoming and authentic.